influential thing on me in terms of the songwriters that KPFT supported. And you would hear everyone. You would hear Willis Allen Ramsey and Billy Joe Shaver and Guy Clark and just all these amazing writers. So I don't think I would have taken writing as seriously if I wouldn't have listened to KPFT. Hey everybody, this is Jesse Dayton, and you, my friends, are listening to KPFT in Houston, Texas.
This is KPFT Houston, 90.1 FM.
Looking out a dirty old window, down below the cars in the city go rushing by. I sit here alone and I wonder why. Friday night and everyone's moving. I can feel the heat, but it's soothing, heading down. I search for the beat in this steady town. Downtown, the young ones are going. Downtown, the young ones are growing. We're the kids in America. Whoa. We're the kids in America. Whoa. Everybody lives for the music around.
A big welcome to Growing Up in America here on KPFT Pacifica Radio. Bob Sanborn here with Bree Derry. How you doing, Bree?
I'm doing good. It's a little early, isn't it?
It is not. It's early for us, but this is the first time we're in this time slot, and I'm really excited about it because I guess we're here forever now, right? So
I think it's a nice home for us. I do.
Yeah. So morning, there are a lot of people dropping off their kids at school. So the people very interested in children's issues. So this is Growing Up in America. This is a show, podcast, where we basically focus on children's policy, public policy. How do we as a city and a community do when it comes to taking care of all of our children? A production of Children at Risk, sort of the voice of Texas's children, a nonprofit organization dedicated to research, public policy, law, and collaborative action on behalf of the youth of Texas. And Bree and I will fill this 90 minutes with lively conversation. We have great guests today.
Oh, they're amazing.
Yeah. So we're very good. Today on the program, we're going to be talking a little bit about teen pregnancy, which is in many ways a taboo subject when you go to Austin these days to talk to the state legislature. We're going to be talking with Miranda Johnson. Megan Menchaca from the Houston Chronicle. She is the star education reporter over there. We're going to be talking about what's going on with Houston Independent School District. We love these updates with Megan. Rebecca George is with us, and we're following her journey.
Yes. She's been on the show before last summer, and she came on as an intern to share a little bit about her career. And so I just wanted to touch base with her and see what she's thinking now.
And it's her journey through college. She is a student at Southwestern University. She did her internship at Children at Risk, so she's a advocate for children in training, and so we're very excited that she's going to be with us to talk a little bit about her career exploration. We'll end up the hour with Asher Lara-Small, who's with the Houston Landing. He's their education reporter, and we're really excited about Asher being on the program.
Yeah, we get all those different angles on education. I know these reporters do so much work, and they cover so many stories.
Yeah.
So they're going to have great stuff to tell us, I think.
There's so much going on in public education in Houston right now, so I'm real excited that we're going to be talking with them. We're going to do a little segment here at the top called Hip Speak, and Bree, I know you're super hip. I know that I am not super hip, but we feel like it's everyone's right who listens to the show to know what young people are saying these days.
Yeah, and the dialogue is just getting a little bit more interesting every year, I think.
Yeah, so it's you'll be quizzing me on this, I guess, right? So you're an expert on it, but I think it's going to be good. And then, of course, as always, we'll have Dr. Data with us, our data section. The number today, what is it, Bree? What is our number today?
Ooh, it's 40%. What's your guess today, Dr. Bob?
So 40%. 40% of America just can't believe what's going on. I mean, probably like 60%. 40% maybe expected it. 60% is like, what the heck?
I feel like that
Yeah.
feels a little more accurate.
Yeah,
Yes,
man,
yes.
it's just amazing all the things that are happening right now.
So much going on.
Yeah, we may talk about that a little bit as well with some of our guests as we get going. So, because that's a big old deal, as they say. Coming up after the quick musical break, we're going to hit right into hip speak. So we probably, Rico, you probably have some super hip music for us, right, as we get into hip speak. So you're listening to Growing Up in America. Dr. Bob Sanborn, along with Bree Derry. Bree, ready for the show?
Oh, yeah, we're so ready.
We'll be right back with Hip Speak.
It's where I belong, down at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. I'm gonna keep on dancing down in West Hollywood. I'm gonna keep on dancing at the Pink Pony Club. Pink Pony Club.
Can you get any more hip than that? Come on.
Absolutely not. That was what I needed this morning. I am awake and ready to go.
So we're down at the Pink Pony Club, and what are you hitting me with this morning? What are some of the good words that we need to learn?
This one I'm very excited for you, actually. My term, the first one of the day, is let them cook.
So, pure guess, let them cook is like if people have gotten themselves into a little trouble and or maybe with their vocabulary a little bit of trouble, and so you're saying, like, let them cook, like let it be.
Let them boil kind of thing. They're in the
Yeah.
hot water now.
Yeah.
I knew you would say that, and it's actually not right, Dr. Bob. I love fooling you.
So what does it mean? Let them cook.
So, you know when you're on stage and you're giving a great speech.
Oh, yes.
And you're really feeling it, and you're just like, the crowd is vibing, the energy is there, people are following and hanging on every word. That is let them cook.
So it's almost like an amen from the audience, but it's like, let them cook.
Yep, he's killing it. Let him keep going.
Wow, that's very good. I love that. Where does that come from? Do you know, Bree?
Oh, I should have looked that one up. I
Yeah,
did
that's
not.
okay. That's okay. But that's the word. Let them cook. All right.
Yeah.
And when you're on the radio, it's almost like people are saying, "Oh, let her cook. Let them cook." Right.
Truly,
so,
truly.
Because you're so good. All right. But next one here on Hip Speak with Bree.
All right, and I am very much into music and rap, and so this one is trending in 2025 with the release of a recent album, Delulu.
So, who is the singer of Delulu, by the way? What's her name?
Her name is Doechii. She's amazing.
Doechii, yeah. So, this is like delusional, right? This is like most of America these days, right? Delusional.
Yes, you are in the ballpark, actually.
Oh, okay.
So I would give you an 8 out of 10 here. It is delusional, but in the sense of like kind of you're too delusional in your relationship almost. You're very wrapped up in romance, and you're just not seeing straight.
So it's almost good, Delulu. No, it's not good.
It's like the bad side of being wrapped up in romance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So Delulu, have you ever been Delulu in your love life?
I mean, what teenager hasn't been Delulu? Come on now.
All right. What's next?
All right. Our next one is 8.
Like 8 as in, I ate the whole thing sort of thing, right? Not the number 8. So they ate like they did, they didn't do it very well. They ate it. I don't know.
So we're kind of going back to our first
need
one a
to
little
see.
bit here, and it's
Yeah.
about the same. So if you're in that same situation on stage, I'd be like, ooh,
He ate.
he ate.
Which is really good. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yep, absolutely nailed it.
So it's like growing up in America. It's a show that,
This episode. In the future, we will say this episode 8.
this episode 8. Okay, very good. Okay. She ate no crumbs. This is what Rico's adding to us. No crumbs.
No cap.
So is that right? Is that, yeah, okay, very good. No crumbs. Okay, I'm liking it.
We have Rico's approval. I feel validated. Our next one is glazed. Good for the morning time, I think.
Because of donuts?
I mean,
So glazed, I'm going to feel like, to me, it sounds like something, someone's glazed is like they maybe had a little too much to drink.
ooh, that's a good one, actually.
Yeah.
Yes, their eyes are glazing over, usually in relation to boredom.
But
they're
glazed.
just really not there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're not, if the program wasn't 8, or if they're not cooking, then people are glazing. I'm
Absolutely,
just
Bob.
not really saying those words correctly, aren't I?
I think you get a very big gold star, though, for trying.
And then the final word for the Hip Speak today is?
Yeah, this is one we've had in the show before, and it's been through a little bit of a metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
So, Rizzler.
So someone is a rizzler? Mm-hmm. So that's someone who can really rizz, who has a lot of charisma, using their charisma. Is a rizzler often used like in dating circles?
Yes, you've got it.
Yeah. So like you, when you go out dating, you're like a rizzler. You know how to do it.
I am the utmost Rizzler all the way. Yes, it is the
Yeah.
person who has the charisma, drawing people to them, all those things.
I almost feel like Rico would be a good rizzler, don't you think?
Absolutely. You know the sunglasses he has on right now? 10 out of 10.
Yeah. So, yeah. And frankly, with a name like Rico, You got to be a Rizzler.
Rico the Rizzler. It just fits. We love alliteration here.
Very good. That is Hip Speak with Bree. And how often are we doing these Hip Speak segments, by the way? Because I do love them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do them every other week. So we alternate between a special segment of Hip Speak, and then we also do Thumbs Up, Thumbs Down to discuss the controversial issues most impacting kids these days.
Okay, so we go back and forth. Very good. You're listening to Growing Up in America here on KPFT Pacifica Radio. Next up, we're going to talk a little bit about teen pregnancy with Miranda Johnson. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America.
Don't you need me like I need you now? Say tomorrow, but tonight go crazy. All you gotta do is just meet me at the
All right, Rico's hot today. So Miranda Johnson is with us. Miranda is a project coordinator at Children at Risk. She's one of the top advocates over there.
She's amazing.
She's like super, super coordinated. I'm actually going with Miranda and a whole team of people to Lima, Peru. We're visiting with social services places down there. So I'm excited about that.
That'll be amazing. I'm very jealous that you're going, Dr.
Yeah, I know. You should be going, Bree. Miranda, how are you doing this morning?
I'm well. How are you, Dr. Bob?
Very good, very good. So, Miranda, what is the state of teen pregnancy in our state right now in Texas?
The state is a little sobering, Dr. Bob. So we know that 13.1% of youth, which is about a little under 485,000 individuals, are disconnected from education and work. And of that, 16% of that group of people are faced with teen pregnancy.
It used to be, and help me with this, Miranda, I remember talking about teen pregnancy in Texas where we were in the top 10 states with teen pregnancy, but moreover, Houston and Dallas sort of led the nation in second teen pregnancies. I mean, where do we stand right now as we speak about teen pregnancy in America? Where does Texas fall into that? And this is a state, right, that has taught abstinence, that's the number one way you stop teen pregnancies. You talk about abstinence, and it hasn't worked. But where do we stand today?
Well, across the nation, 10.9% of young people are in this place, which is about 4.3 million lives. And with Texas being at 13.1%, we know that we are above average of that number, which our state has we were part of a 15-year decline. But the numbers have started increasing again.
Wow.
That's interesting just to hear how that trend is changing over the course of 15 years. Can you tell us a little bit about why that might be happening? Is it the opportunities and that disconnection there, or are there other things at play that we should be aware of?
It is primarily due to disconnection. We know that these opportunities are not in school. They're disconnected from work, and it just leaves them in a very vulnerable place. There's also a lot of factors such as mental health and physical health and different types of things that, these are barriers and that they're having to navigate through in addition to all of that.
Miranda, yesterday I was in a meeting where we talked about evidence and how, if you have good evidence, if you have good research, oftentimes you could make good policy. In regards to evidence, there seems to be a lot of very good evidence around sex education and its positive impact on teen pregnancy. It's one of those areas that's been researched a lot, right? If we had quality evidence-based sex education in our schools that was age-appropriate, what we found in other states that they see a significant decrease in teen pregnancy. Why is that not? I mean, I could answer this question as well, I guess, but why is that not working in Texas, Miranda?
Dr. Bob, that's a great question. And, many schools, that is part of the curriculum. That is something that students have to go through. There are a lot of factors that go along with that, but honestly, I couldn't give you an answer. I don't know why the number is not reflecting that.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you would say, Dr. Bob.
Well, I think, I think we're not seeing enough. While there's some school districts will have a little bit of sex education, one of the things that happened a couple of legislative sessions ago is that we eliminated health education as a required subject. It used to be one semester of health was required.
Yep.
And oftentimes school districts would put a little bit of sex education in there because they were worried about teen pregnancy. But the state legislature, in all its wisdom, said, listen, we don't want any sex education. That's up to parents. And we're going to eliminate health education altogether. And, I think it's a good idea that parents teach this stuff. But I think, unfortunately, Miranda, not all parents are doing that. A lot of parents are scared to talk about these issues.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great point. And even regarding the health class in general, like with sex education being a piece of that, there were also so many valuable pieces of health that I think young people just aren't familiar with now since that has been removed. So that definitely needs to be a conversation for possibly the next legislative session.
Yeah.
There's so many conversations to have. And I find, people on our show, our regulars know that I am not from Texas. I'm an Idaho transplant, of course. Yeah. And I remember going to school and being in like 6th grade and I had my first sex ed course and I hated it. It was so uncomfortable and I tried to get out of it. But then I remember 3 years later, my mom had watched a Dr. Oz episode. I don't even know. No, it was the psychologist.
Dr. Phil?
Thank you. Dr. Phil episode on teen pregnancy and homecoming. And instead of talking to me about it, she just made me watch the episode with her and then we quietly went on our way. And I'm like, parents are terrified of this subject. So, yes, we do need to be having a conversation about it earlier on. And the stigma, I think, is just interesting.
And unfortunately, Miranda, as you know, one of the ways that kids learn about sex education is by watching pornography, right? Because it seems to be much more accessible than evidence-based stuff. And so they get sort of this skewed idea of what sexuality is for kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as a parent, I know that those conversations will be happening. I can either be the first one to have that conversation with my child or someone else can be the first. And so I think really, like, as parents, setting that narrative of the conversations being had is so important, and teaching them, like you said, Dr. Bob, like what actually is sex and, outside of pornography. So I think that's a very, very important conversation to be had early on at an age-appropriate level.
And I think if you look around the world and around the country at where we see the lower rates of teen pregnancy, a number of factors at work. Parents are taught how to teach their kids. They get an assist at the schools with evidence-based sex education. And then there are wraparound services that address some of these things that sometimes we don't want to talk about, but make it easier as a parent to feel safe about your child not running into some of these super big challenges. Teen pregnancy, the opportunity to devastate a young life, right? Your own life as a youngster. So focus on prevention, right? That way it's a better thing. Miranda Johnson with Children at Risk. She's a project coordinator over there, and one of the big interest areas is teen pregnancy because it's part of this Opportunity Youth program that's going on. So thank you, Miranda, very much for being on the program.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All righty. Coming up after the break, Megan Menchaca is with us. She's a reporter with the Houston Chronicle and covering the Houston Independent School District, which everyone has a big interest in these days because of all the many interesting things happening over at the Houston Independent School District. We'll be right back with Megan Menchaca here on Growing Up in America. All right, on Growing Up in America today, we have Megan Menchaca with us. Megan is a reporter with the Houston Chronicle. She covers a lot of public education issues, including the Houston Independent School District. Megan, I haven't talked to you in a while. How you been doing?
I've been doing good. How are you?
Very good, very good. And I guess is it next week that you guys come out with the big school rankings edition? Is that right, Megan?
I think it's sometime in the next couple of weeks. The exact date I think is not up to me.
Oh, it's a secret. Okay, very good. Yeah. So, hey, Megan, what's the biggest sort of thing coming out of the Houston Independent School District that you and your colleagues in the newsroom are covering and sort of a little bit, maybe super interested in, and why maybe more of us in Houston should be interested in?
Yeah, well, there are a couple issues. I think one of them that's important, I think, for people to think about is the new district-developed teacher evaluation system that HISD is planning to seek board approval for in March. It's going to be evaluating teachers on student test scores, classroom observations, professionalism, boosting overall campus-wide student achievement, and it's going to score these teachers on a target distribution. So 8% earn the top score, 52% earn the next score, and so on. And there are, in my view, two reasons why everyone should keep an eye out for news about these teacher evaluations. And the first is that there are very few factors, if any, that are more important to a student's learning than the quality of the teacher standing in front of them. And so it's worth paying attention to what the school district, the largest school district in the city, is doing to address teachers and evaluate teachers and the quality of the education they're providing. And the second reason is that one of the biggest conflicts in HISD right now since the state takeover is about how much exactly teachers should be evaluated, monitored, and how involved the district should be in the day-to-day operations of classrooms, particularly in high-performing schools where teachers feel like they're doing everything right, and why should the district be, telling them how to do it this way or that way. The number of teachers who have left the district in the past year has spiked compared to previous years, and many of those teachers have been replaced with uncertified teachers because we don't have, an infinite number of teachers who are ready to enter classrooms. So it'll be interesting to see the public reaction amongst teachers and other community members to this new custom evaluation system that HISD is planning to implement.
Megan, you and I have talked about this idea. We wondered early on, were we going to see mass exodus of teachers? Talking with our friends over the teachers' unions, they were saying the same sort of thing. Education experts in general were wondering if we'd see this mass exodus. Has it been as big as maybe you and I would have expected it to be, Megan?
There was a pretty significant spike in June.
Yeah.
I don't know if that will continue. The district saw, I believe, 4,000 employees leave and 2,400 teachers leave, and that's just in June. And that's about a quarter of 4,700 teachers leave.
Wow.
And that's a pretty significant chunk of the 11,000 teachers who were employed in the district at the time.
That's a big chunk. That's a huge chunk.
Yes. So I think the district is trying to balance, maintaining teachers while also trying to implement the standards and requirements that they want for teachers. And teachers are feeling the same way, is that they're trying to balance like the job that they love, the staying at the campuses they love, while deciding, do I really want to be governed by these new district mandates and rules?
When you look at that large number, I mean, it's not quite half, but it's almost there in terms of teachers leaving. If you talk to the district and apologists for the district, they would say, well, those are teachers that we didn't want anyway. But you can't think that almost half the teachers would have been teachers that didn't want. They had to lose some quality there, Megan.
Yeah, I can't speak. I think we're still trying to get data on the quality of and quality too is tough. How you measure quality, I think, is up to the beholder, in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
Some people, it's just student test scores. What percentage of students in this class are passing the STAR, passing the math test. But for some parents and students, they value not just the test score, but also the classroom environment, right? Is the teacher providing a welcoming space to learn? Is my student happy in class? Are they being treated fairly and crying? And that's not something that you can measure on the STAR. And it's a little harder, I think, to measure in classroom evaluations as well. That has been the issue, too, is that some parents say, I really like this teacher. This teacher was really good for my student. And it's more of the data, like the personal data versus the testing data itself.
Do we think that, and do you hear that other districts around the greater Houston area are welcoming these teachers with open arms? Is it something where it's pretty easy for them to find a place once they leave the Houston Independent School District?
Yeah, I mean, I think every school district is looking for people who want to be teachers. They're trying to increase pay as much as possible, make their school districts as attractive as possible, and they are welcoming anyone who wants to be a teacher, including former HISD teachers, with open arms. I think that the tough part is that people who maybe live in Houston, do they really want to drive 45 minutes to Cypress or to Alief or to Aldine to work in the district? So we've seen several teachers go to private schools, charter schools, schools that maybe are closer by and don't require a long drive. They can just do it in their backyard and don't have to drive as far. But yes, of course, other people are also choosing to live and work in other school districts.
Megan, when you look at the data around how kids are doing, one of the things is that when you look at some of these historically low-performing schools, we've seen some good things, whether they're sustainable and whether they're just test prep. I mean, what's the take from you guys at the Chronicle newsroom? I mean, what are you thinking around when you see some of this data come out?
Yeah, it's actually interesting to bring up testing data. I'm not sure that if you saw that the NAAP released, the NAEP released its nation's report card this year. Mm-hmm. And that's an important data point because it's a national test. It's not a state test. It's not a district test. It's a national test that people across the U.S. take. They do samples of urban districts, the state tests, and HISD is showing more growth amongst its schools compared to these are 4th and 8th graders in reading and math compared to other, schools and districts that are comparable. And so that is that number itself, is a good sign. It shows that more students learning how to read and do math is a good thing. But as we brought up, is this sustainable? One of the biggest issues is around funding, right? NES requires a lot of more money to implement. You're paying more teachers, higher salaries. That's one of the biggest costs. You're mandating district curriculum. There are a lot more costs in NES school, which have seen these larger bumps in student achievement. And the real question is the legislature going to give HISD the money that it has been lacking, particularly in the past 2 years? And that's not something that I know for sure.
Right.
I think that people who are more familiar with the Texas Capitol are saying that if vouchers pass, so will a significant increase in public education spending for non-private schools. That would be a welcome relief to HISD and pretty much every Houston area district, every district in the state to have more money. Will they be able to use that to produce, this such high growth year over year? I'm not sure. I think that, if you implement major reforms, you are likely to see a big jump at first. But, it's if you're doing the same thing in the continuous years, I don't know if that will continue to produce as big of jumps in the future.
You're listening to Growing Up in America here on KPFT. We're talking with Megan Menchaca, who's a Chronicle reporter, the Houston Chronicle, talking about public education. Bree, you had a hard-hitting question for Megan?
I do. There's a lot of anticipation around this upcoming the current legislative session and what's going to happen with school funding and school vouchers. But we've also seen some kind of more recent action from HISD. And can you tell us a little bit about the vendor agreements that have been in the news lately?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Sure. So first, a brief recap for people who maybe haven't been tuned in is that the HISD Superintendent Mike Miles announced earlier this month that the district had failed to bring in $870 million or close to $1 billion in vendor agreements to the appointed school board for board approval over the past 16 months. And the reason this happened, according to them, is that they thought these purchases were exempt from board approval under board policy, but they were not. And that's because the appointed board had voted in August 2023 to allow Miles to make certain purchases up to $1 million without board approval, but it didn't apply to what's known as cooperative agreements, which are like pre-approved contracts that are pre-negotiated by a larger body that HISD can enter without an open bid process. And so HISD said basically there was a mistake. We thought that these contracts were allowed without board approval, and whoops, now we need to get board approval for those. And the board did end up approving them at the January board meeting, but it sparked a lot of concern amongst HISD parents and community members who first are worried about the amount of unchecked spending in the district. on programs like the new education system, but also about what they consider like a lack of accountability on state-appointed superintendent. They believe that the board is supposed to be a check on Miles, ensuring he's following all the rules, leading the district in the right direction, and they feel like the violation of this policy represents a failure of the board and the district to like have that check.
Yeah, it's concerning, isn't it? And I've heard a couple of parents sort of talking about this, and you know, it certainly leaves you wondering, right? Because if everything's above board, why did we have to go through this? So it's certainly interesting. Megan, I wanted to ask one last thing, but change the subject a little bit before we move on in the program, and it's around this recent report from our friends over at Good Reason Houston around the graduates of the Houston Independent School District and their earning potential. And it was striking to a lot of us. I mean, give us a little bit of an idea what happened there.
Sure. So I want to first say that this is sort of part of a larger focus by me and the rest of the Chronicle reporters on writing about how Houston ISD has in the past failed to prepare many of its high school graduates for success in higher education and the workforce. And that's sort of going to be a sustained series that we're doing. It's one of the first articles in that series. And so Good Reason Houston, which is a local nonprofit in Houston focused on education research, found that less than 20% of HISD's high school graduates earn enough to make a living wage in Harris County 6 years after graduating from high school. And a living wage, according to MIT, is a little over $42,000 a year for a single adult to cover all their basic needs. And that's based on all that calculation is based on data from the PEA, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, the Texas Workforce Commission, and a sample of more than 9,000 HISD graduates. And so that, and it's not just HISD, it's not exclusive to HISD, but obviously my story focused on HISD because that's the biggest district in the Houston area and the district that I cover. And there are two reasons why this happens. The biggest issue is that wages are determined by whether the higher wages determined by whether a student goes to college or earns some sort of credential after graduating high school. And that is a big hurdle for Houston area students to conquer. Less than a quarter of Houston ISD's Black and Hispanic students earn any type of college degree within 6 years after graduating high school, compared to more than half of white students. And without that college degree, they're going to earn $10,000 less a year and well below the minimum wage, living wage required to live in Harris County.
It's interesting, right, when you talk about that, is that we sort of have a system, and it's changed over the last couple legislative sessions, in terms of, forcing some kids to be in tracks that are going to sort of lead them to these lower salaries. It's sort of striking, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say that most people probably aren't aware, I think, of the percentage or the number of students who are not earning college degrees, who are earning credentials that will give them slightly higher wages, but not as high of wages as they could earn through a college degree program. It's not new to the state takeover. It's not new to the former superintendent before that. This has been a long-standing issue in Houston area school districts across the city.
Yeah. Megan, before you go, I did want to bring up this idea of, I'll be in Austin tomorrow at the state legislature. And, are you guys in the newsroom hearing a lot about sort of the potential bills around vouchers and education savings accounts and what's happening there? You guys hearing much?
Yeah, so we are largely focused on, I would say, city-specific news. So issues happening in Houston. We have the Houston Chronicle has a large Austin team that focuses on covering developments inside the Texas Capitol. I will say that the voucher bill in the Senate, SB 2, is effectively being fast-tracked. I think it got approval, committee approval on Tuesday, and I believe the lieutenant governor is looking to approve it. I think he said next week, and that's quite fast for a bill to go. Usually bills are not passed until April or May. So they've made it very clear that it's a priority. The current legislation says parents could receive up to $10,000 to pay for private school tuition and other costs. and that's of taxpayer public funds. And the legislature would allocate $1 billion in total for that program.
To me, that was the striking thing, right? That the state legislature, with a budget surplus, said we're going to take $1 billion and we're going to allocate it to these vouchers. After 2 legislative sessions of surpluses, not giving money, not giving any increase to public education, it was very striking to me.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to me that the previous proposal during the last legislative session was only $500 million, and no one was able to come to a compromise on passing that legislation. And now that the governor helped elect several more lawmakers who are more pro-vouchers, they have enough support in the legislature to double that, to have $1 billion in funding. So I think that last session, lawmakers could have passed a public education funding increase and $500 million for vouchers. This year, it's looking like it's going to be a public education funding increase plus $1 billion for vouchers.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
So much money.
And it's something that will have a potentially significant impact on our public schools here in Houston. And it will mean a lot for you and I to talk about, Megan, over the next few years. That's for sure. So Megan Menchaca is the Houston Chronicle reporter. She's one of the reporters on public education. One of our favorites, though, Megan. So we're excited that you've been here. And Megan, we'll talk to you real soon. Keep up the great work, okay?
Thank you so much. Great speaking with you both.
All righty. Take care. You're listening to Growing Up in America here on KPFT, Pacifica Radio. Coming up, we're going to do Data of the Day, and we have Dr. Data, Chris Kulesa, with us. We'll be talking to him in just a second. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America. Little bit of Star Trek, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So who doesn't like Star Trek, right? I think a lot of people don't like Star Trek. My wife being among them. So
really,
yeah. So I've been married a long time, and so I was going to say, but I'm not. But the first 2 years, she actually watched Star Trek with me. It was just like early marriage. She was like the honeymoon phase still. Yeah.
So it's not even like I don't know it, I don't like it. It's an I know it, and I still don't like it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You watch your sci-fi. So, Chris, have you reached that point? Chris Kulesa is with us, Dr. Data. Have you reached that point in your marriage where your wife says, "Yeah, you watch Star Trek on your own," or is she still all gung ho with you?
No, she's at the point where I have to watch it by myself. There is one series that she likes, and that's Strange New Worlds. That's the new one, with Captain Pike.
Sure, yeah.
But beyond that, no. And my favorite series is DS9. And no, even with DS9, which I think is peak television, of course,
Deep Space Nine, for those that don't know, with Captain Sisko running the space station, right? So
thank you.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is a good one, right? I mean, the enemy there, who's the Kardashians, right? Or what's the name of them? What is the name of the?
It's the Kardashians and the Dominion.
Yes.
Is it really the Kardashians?
Yeah, the Kardashians, not the Kardashians, which is interesting, right? Because I think that was before, Kim Kardashian. And so
I will
forth.
never forget this, and now I think I like Star Trek.
And the Dominion becomes the bigger enemy, of course, over time. Yeah. But Chris, we significantly digress on this one. Dr. Chris Kulesa is at the Baker Institute at Rice University, and he's a scholar in health over there. So what is the data of the day is 40%, Chris, is that correct?
It is. So I promised you some good news, and while the number itself is not great, there is some good news in it. So that is the percentage of students overall who experience persistent feelings of sadness or hopelessness for the recent Youth Risk Behavior Survey. However, that number is actually down from 42%.
It's still super high, though, isn't it?
It is still super high, and it's way too early, of course, to tell whether or not that this is some kind of a trend. And if we're looking at differences between male and female students, much of the decreases came from the female students. Male students didn't really see much of a change. There was a reduction from 57% down to 53%. But with that being said, we are starting to maybe see the peak of these numbers, especially after COVID-19, and as we start putting in a bit more emphasis in mental health in schools. So hoping that this is going to be a part of a larger trend.
So I know the pandemic obviously had a lot of impact on this, but are there any other factors we can consider when we look at these numbers and this statistic?
Right. So I definitely think that there's been a bit of a focus within schools to try to destigmatize mental health and seeking mental health. There's a lot of emphasis right now, of course, in the state legislators and the school districts to try to expand services, and we're starting to see that in certain places, but of course we are still far behind. Of course, as mentioned in Texas, that we are a mental health desert clear across the board. Well over 95% of schools do not meet the recommended levels of counselors to students. So we're starting again to see a little bit of a positive trajectory on the public policy side, but again, it's really not enough, but hoping we're seeing that continue on into the years in the future.
Chris, you and I have talked about mental health in our schools, mental health in our community with children for some time. If Texas were to say, we want to put our money where our mouth is, or if Houston were to say this, and we want to have an impact on mental health, because obviously the numbers are moving, not quickly enough in the right direction. What would be some of the things that we would want to do as a community or as a state?
So a couple different things. Of course, there's always increasing the amount of counselors in schools, right? We're just simply not there. And making sure that the counselors that are there are fully trained and licensed and not trying to, use, I guess you could say, stand-ins, right? Yeah. As we've seen some conversations around. But another big thing, too, is making sure that those that are providing services are bilingual. There's still a significant bridge between some students that are Spanish speaking, and with that, if assistance is coming to them in a language that they're not familiar with, they're not going to be able to interact with that. So really making an investment to make sure that we can have more available that speak English and Spanish. And of course, on the other side of it, putting in more efforts and emphasis into the destigmatization. Work that we've done here at Baker Institute, we've seen that even if you have services, it doesn't necessarily mean that students are going to interact with it.
Mm-hmm. When you look at comparisons, there are some schools and some districts that have paid a little bit more attention to mental health issues and looking for mental healthiness amongst the student population. Many of those use communities in schools. We love the model of communities in schools, right? Social workers, counselors, much more attention being paid. Do we see a difference in a school that has communities in schools or any other sort of high impact mental health program compared to those that don't?
We absolutely do. You really do see a very significant change. It's not necessarily immediate right after the program comes in, but you do start to see some real positive differences. And I think that what you're talking about is a very important point in terms of being able to make these programs and these partnerships, of course, around the community as well to make sure that the students are getting the support that they need.
The majority of students in all the Houston school districts are Latino. And what is the Latino interaction with mental health services? Culturally, what's the impact there, Chris?
So there are a couple different ways. So one, of course, is definitely the language barrier, right? The fact that we just simply don't have enough counselors that speak Spanish. But also there is indeed a bit of a stigma of interacting with mental health professionals, and also being able to seek help and wanting to seek help, right? Just simply that in many Latino cultures that there really isn't that kind of emphasis or even that kind of comfortableness with admitting when there is an issue, and it's really important for us to be able to bridge that gap as well.
Absolutely. And just from a general cultural perspective, I think for men in general, it can be really hard to take care of their emotional health sometime. And that's a very big generalization. So take it with a grain of salt. I'm sure both the gentlemen I have on the show right now are very much not that type.
We would both agree with you. Boys are a mess, Chris. I mean, I think that's the deal. So it's just, it goes without saying.
I was just curious. So how do we I know this takes a while. So do we just start having these conversations? Do we start showing leaders in these spaces feeling their feelings? What can we begin doing on a very grassroots level? It's
going to take a lot of advocacy,
yeah.
Right? And especially when you have things like the legislative session going on right now and you have a state surplus, you're going to need to be able to talk to your state legislators to make sure that they see that these numbers really do matter and what these numbers mean. right? And then also, of course, talking to local school districts, talking to community partners to see if that there's a gap that they might be able to help meet. Because fundamentally speaking, the numbers that I showed, and really quickly too, talk about the Hispanic population. Yeah. We also saw a decrease in the percentage of Hispanic students who felt sad or hopeless. That went down from 46% to 42%.
Wow.
So, these conversations are making a difference, I think.
Yeah.
I think it might be more than just the pandemic going away. I think conversations like this are making a difference, and the advocacy is really making a difference.
And it used to be, Chris, that we sort of would make this deal with the devil. Every time there was a school shooting, we would say, well, it could be related to mental health. And it was easier on government officials to say, related to mental health, we'll put more money into mental health. But even that isn't happening the way it should be happening, right? We're not getting the large influx. Texas still at the bottom of the list of those states that put money into mental health for children. It's still a very sad deal.
It really is, and it just gets into the funding priorities. I know when we were with your previous guest speaking about how there was a lack of support given to public schools, and now with the voucher program. Yeah. One thing that I do want to mention really quickly about the voucher program and talking about these different budget priorities, that it's expected that the cost of that program is going to pretty significantly rise as it's currently designed. So the way that the Legislative Budget Board estimated that the program would grow to $3.75 billion in costs by 2030.
Wow. Yeah. So a lot of interesting information, as always, from Dr. Kulesa over at Rice University. Chris, thank you so much for being on the program. Thanks for being Dr. Data. Give our best to all your colleagues over there at the Baker Institute, and keep up the great work. We'll talk to you real soon, Chris.
Talk to you soon. Thank you for having me.
All righty. Take care. To our Star Trek fan, Chris Kulesa.
Our star fan.
Our star fan. There you go. We'll be right back. Hey, coming up for our final segment, we're going to be talking with Rebecca George, Children at Risk Fellow, and she's a student at Southwestern University. We're going to be talking about her career journey. Is she a senior now? Is that right, Bree?
Oh, I should know.
We're going to ask her. We're going to ask her. We're going to see how that career planning is going, and we'll do our Fast 5 questions with Rebecca right after this break. We'll be right back here on Growing Up in America.
I don't know about you, but I am ready to just jam out all day long now.
Well, with Rico being the DJ, it's
the
just,
Rizzler.
Yeah, Rico the Rizzler. So up next, we're going to look at the student journey through college with our good buddy Rebecca George. She's a student out at Southwestern University. Are you a senior now, Rebecca, or a junior?
I'm actually a sophomore.
Holy
I'm in my
cow!
second year.
Wow, look at that. We just think of you, you're so mature, Rebecca, and
and so talented.
And so talented. And,
thank you. Y'all are going to make my ego huge.
Yeah. Hey, Rebecca, where did you go to high school in Houston, Rebecca? You went in Austin, right?
Yeah, I'm in Austin, and I actually went to high school in Austin at a school called McNeil High School.
McNeil High School, yeah, one of the great high schools, right? So,
so
Rebecca, tell us about, I know you spent some of your summer in Houston, but tell us about sort of this time in your sophomore year at Southwestern. What is going through your mind career-wise, and what are the pressures as a college student that you have on you in terms of deciding what a major is and what a career path you should have? What pressures do you feel, Rebecca, and other students like you?
Well, this is usually around the time where students in college have to declare a major and kind of be sure about it. And obviously you always have the choice to change it, but there's more pressure. You may have to take more time to take the classes you want if you change. There's a lot of pressure to decide what you want to do. There's also a lot of pressure to get internships or become a fellow somewhere. And there's a lot of pressure to kind of reach out and start reaching out to mentors and trying to have people that will kind of lead you in the right direction while also simultaneously knowing exactly where you're going, which no one does. And so there's a lot of pressure in that kind of sense to kind of just know exactly who you are and exactly what you're doing. When in reality, people who are 18, 19, in their 20s have no idea who they are and still are trying to figure out what they're doing. Yeah. So it's a lot of that of trying to figure out who you are as a person and who you are as a brand.
I remember that age so well, and it's very much that exactly what you're saying. It's a beautiful time, but it's also a very stressful time. So I wish you all the best in that. But
that's just a couple of years ago for you, Bree.
It feels like forever.
Yeah, well,
So much happens in your 20s, Dr. Bob.
I guess so, yeah. So go on, Bree.
I just wanted to ask, so there's a lot of focus on networking and this mentorship piece. Why do you think that's so critical?
I think networking and mentoring is so important because you never know what kind of connection you're going to need in the future because you could get an internship or a job based on like your friend's cousin's aunt's son's business, right? And you have no idea what kind of connections you could have based on the networking connections you make. So I think just networking is so important. And having a mentor, I think someone who has done what you wanted to do before and kind of has a similar trajectory that you want to go, they know the choices that you should make and the ones you shouldn't make and the mistakes they've made along the way that kind of will lead you to the right place. So,
Rebecca, I have an odd question, but this is completely my brand of a question, which is, as a sophomore college student, social media is a part of your life. And I know for you, your mom is in a big deal in the tech industry as well. And I'm wondering, when you think about things like TikTok, I mean, when you look at your friends, how influential is and was TikTok, especially, it was banned for a couple of days. I mean, where do you stand on that?
I think, TikTok, I can tell you as a college sophomore that TikTok is everywhere and it's all around us. And me and my friends will have like a time where we'll show each other the funny videos that we see, like at night after dinner, we'll like go through all the ones we have saved. And so I would say on campus here, it's pretty prevalent. And so having it banned was kind of a big deal. Like, we were like, I don't know. And the fact that it came back was very, very surprising to all of us. But in a sense, but not all surprising because it just was unexpected. But at the same time, it was kind of, we were wondering if it would happen. So it is definitely very prevalent around campus, and we're all very confused by everything that's happening with TikTok right now.
I was a little upset for a couple of days when I didn't have TikTok.
I was going to ask you, Dr. Bob. I was like, were you okay?
Yeah, I was fine. I mean, because I still, but my daughter immediately texted me. She said, "Did you see if TikTok is off the air?" And so it was a big deal. So it's we'll see what happens, right? It could be at the end of 75 days we lose it forever as well. So I think that will happen. You ready for the fast 5 questions, Bree? Okay, you get to ask the first one, right?
I absolutely am. Rebecca, are you ready for this?
I'm so ready.
My first question for you is, what is a childhood nickname that either stuck or didn't stick?
Oh, that's a good one,
Rebecca. Oh, I love this question. As my name being Rebecca, I have so many nicknames. My mom, when she was little, called me Beckinator. And that has stuck for 19 years, as long as I have lived.
That's so cute. Were you like a Terminator as a child?
I hope not. I really hope not. I hope I was not that cruel. But I don't know how it happened. It's just kind of one of the things where you say it once and then you start repeating it over and over again. You're like, okay, yeah, that sticks. And then you just keep going. I'm assuming it's something like that.
The Beckinator. Did you have Bree? Did you have a nickname?
Oh,
because you are Brianna, so Bree is sort of the nickname, I guess.
Bree is the chosen name, but the nickname actually is Spud or Little One.
Oh, Spud.
Yeah, I'm Idaho through and through, y'all.
Yeah, I love little Spud. So, okay, what was the first? And I'm going to ask you the same thing, Bree. What was the first concert or live event, Rebecca, that you ever went to?
Ooh, the first concert I begged my parents to go to was for a group called Pentatonics, and they were an a cappella group.
Oh yeah.
And I was a major choir nerd back in the day, so I was freaking out. And the concert was on my 14th birthday. I begged my parents to go, and we finally got tickets, which I was so excited for.
And what was the movie where it sort of set off the whole Pentatonics thing? What was it?
It was Pitch Perfect.
Pitch Perfect.
That was the acapella movie that really set things off. And Glee, which is a TV show.
Of course, yeah, Glee.
I did love Glee for a good time there. Yeah.
I still have, because of my daughter, my playlist has a number of Glee songs. Whenever I take students on trips, they're like, Dr. Bob, Why do you have Glee on here? So
just a very diverse taste in music, you know?
Yeah,
Kind of
exactly.
get the portfolio
What
built out.
was your first concert?
Oh, so I was in college, actually. And I went to a Chance the Rapper concert that my college put on for Finals Fest.
Oh, wow.
But I was too short, and I couldn't see a thing. And this gentleman who was like 7 foot in front of me, all I could see was his armpit the entire time.
I hate that.
It was not fun. But Halsey was the next one, and she was fabulous.
Oh, wow. Very good. I went to see the Eagles on their Hotel California tour. That's how old I am.
Okay, you win,
so.
Dr.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was that was a big deal. I grew up in Puerto Rico, so it was like when I first moved back to the United States, right, to be able to, wow, Eagles.
How old were you?
I'm not saying, but I'm just, yeah, so anyway. Okay, next question for Rebecca.
Yes. So, Rebecca, this kind of ties back to our kind of collegiate career exploration theme, but if you could choose any school subject to be a professional at, what would it be?
Any school subject to be a professional at? I really like, right now, I'm taking a politics class right now, and it's really, really interesting. So probably somewhere in that vein. I just think it's so interesting, like the organization of government and stuff like that. So I would really love to be more immersed in that right now.
Absolutely. And it's such a hot topic in the news. I feel like the more you know, the better off you are anyways. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's all about children. What was your favorite childhood toy, Rebecca Beckinator?
Oh my gosh, my favorite childhood toy. I think I had this, like those little kitty cameras. I think I had one of those as a kid, like one of the like toy cameras where you could take pictures. I think I had one of those, and that was my absolute favorite.
Cute.
Wow.
Okay, I have one more question.
Okay, one more, and then I'm going to finish up with a political question. Go
on. So if you could design your dream treehouse, Rebecca, what is one must-have feature for you?
Oh, yeah.
A dream treehouse?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I know you're into music. I know you like certain shows. So what was one thing that you have to have in there? Is it your guitar? Is it your TV? Your roommate?
I would totally need my guitar. I cannot go anywhere without my guitar. Honestly, if I go anywhere without my guitar, I miss it for a few days. I'm like, oh, guitar, I miss you.
There you go.
So definitely my guitar.
She's going to have like a little music room in her treehouse. So
cute.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Rebecca, because there's so much going on politically, and I want to know from a college campus in Texas, I mean, what's the vibe from students in reaction to the election, in reaction to things are moving fast and furious in Washington? What is the sort of I know there's probably many different political views, but there must be sort of a vibe in general that you're feeling from students. And what is that you're seeing on campus?
Honestly, like at first, most of our campus was a little disappointed, to be honest.
Yeah.
We weren't the happiest, but I think we've come back kind of stronger with the kind of mindset where we're still going to, because of what happened in the election, we're going to fight stronger for the things we believe in, with people's rights and people's like abilities to do things like freely and be who they are freely. And I think that's something that our campus has been really defiant in, which is really fantastic, I think.
That's very good.
I have always loved college campuses for just this deep resolution to drive change and to drive meaningful action. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And at the same time, sort of being not on top of current news, so just sort of having a general idea of how things, are good or not good, and just Yeah. You're kind of like still like learning your favorite news channels, all these things. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right. Thank you so much. Rebecca George is a student at Southwestern. She's a fellow at Children at Risk. And Rebecca, thank you so much for being part of Growing Up in America today.
Well, thank you guys so much. I always love talking to you guys.
All righty. So that's it for the show. I'm excited to be here on Wednesday mornings, Bree.
It feels like it was always meant to be this way.
Exactly.
Yeah. From 9 to 10 every Wednesday.
9 to 10 every Wednesday, Growing Up in America. We'll continue to line up the great guests, talk about children's policy. We will see you next time here on Growing Up in America on Pacifica Radio.
With a dream, my cardigan. Welcome to the land of fame excess. Am I gonna fit in? Jumped in the cab, here I am for the first time. Look to my right and I see the Hollywood sign. This is all so crazy. Everybody seems so famous. My tummy's turning and I'm feeling kinda homesick. Too much pressure and I'm nervous. That's when the taxi man turned on the radio and a Jay-Z song was on. And the Jay-Z song was on. And the Jay-Z song was on. So I put my hands up to play on the
KPFT Artist Profile.
Hi, I'm Kerry Melanson. KPFT has been totally influential in my musical life, and I think the entire Houston music scene, it's a beacon for music arts, songwriting, Americana, roots music, things that you can't hear anywhere else. It's amazing. It's the local flavor that when you're driving across the country, you hope to find, while you're on a road trip or something. You're not just hearing the same stuff on the streaming platforms, whatever, and you get to hear what's here. You get to hear what came here before, and it's really great. It's an education that everybody needs to hear these incredible songs. It's just an amazing opportunity for local and regional musicians.
Listen for his music and other independent artists